The Curious Case of Kathleen O'Neil. Chapter 1, Page 1. It is a very good reason why you should avoid throwing him so much into Mary's society. Poverty is a serious obstacle to matrimony. It would be hard to find two happier people than Alan and Mary. By this time, Mary had become the proud mother of the most wonderful of babies. She saw a sudden look of terror flash into the large blue eyes. Kathleen looks to me extremely delicate. Chapter 3, page 24. The barb in the arrow of childhood suffering is this: its intense loneliness, its intense ignorance. Kathleen had made a bad beginning. The Seymour children were not unkind. They were simply gay and thoughtless. Are there not times in the lives of most of us when the veil which hides us from the unseen world seems so thin that those who yet tread the rocky path of life may refresh their careworn spirits by communication with the blessed dear ones who have passed through the dark valley into the realms of light beyond? Chapter 5, page 41. Kathleen is very ill. Kathleen seems to make no progress. Nothing ails her but nervous disability and a too excitable brain. Arrived at the Beeches, Kathleen was at once put to bed in a sunny, cheerful room. All places were alike to one who had no interest in life. "Edward," she said to her brother that evening, "the dear child is an angel. She has quite an unearthly sweetness about her. Take the unearthliness out of her." He recalled to memory another face, the child of her he had fondly loved. Page 45. Cold reserve of manner, which had become habitual to her. She produced a large locket, which she wore around her neck. "In thy presence is the fullness of joy, and at thy right hand there is pleasure for evermore." Of all the wiles of the devil, this is the most deceptive. Miss Temple did not fail to tell her brother of what she called Kathleen's fancies about her mother. He looked grave, but he did not seem surprised. "I have noticed a peculiar expression in her eyes several times during her illness. The only cure for that sort of thing is rest of mind and activity of body." Page 55. We must make allowance for difference of character and organisation, and in this case also difference of early association. His only safety lie in flight. Mrs. Seymour was annoyed at anything which made Kathleen the centre of interest. Where is the woman who can hear, unmoved, a tale of unrequited love? Mrs. Seymour was deeply touched. "They've side saddles on. They must be for us." Page 75. Dr. Temple's brows knit, and his eyes flashed ominously. The warfare is never accomplished until the sword is at length laid down at the gate of death. "Tell me at once what is amiss, Ned?" she asked in a faint voice. But the next day Miss Temple was far too ill. Dr. Temple looked anxious and ordered the house to be kept as quiet as possible. Kathleen watched the interview anxiously. "I think the only safe place for you is a lunatic asylum. It's rank madness, sheer lunacy. Fragment. Consider revising." Chapter 9, page 85. "Don't distress yourself. However, Kathleen has been all right until today. Death takes away everything." "If you please, cook," she said, "Miss Temple said I might ask you to teach me how to make some of the nice invalid dishes." "What is the meaning of this, Miss O'Neil?" leaving the doctor too horror-stricken for words. Fragment. Consider revising. No loss can be so great or so fatal as the lack of all good home influence. Page 104. "I fear," said Jim, glancing at her pale face, "that I shall be obliged to hurt you when I lift you. Go fetch a bottle with a glass stopper, which you will find on my mantelpiece." What a witch the child is, he thought. Page 110. Well, opinions differ. Kathleen is a very uncommon girl, and possesses quite an extraordinary influence over people. Chapter 11, page 111. Thought Kathleen a nuisance, and called her an inane wax doll. "I don't call that fair," cried Kathleen. Odd, isn't it, how human nature remains always the same? "I am the black sheep of the family, you know. Sure to go wrong on the first opportunity." Page 121. Dr. Temple's amusement, however, soon gave place to serious thought. "I don't call false statements fun, Kathleen," replied her aunt coldly, "and I must beg you will be careful to speak the exact truth." Kathleen's colour rose. "Ignore all. But he is very quixotic, and I do not think it an unlikely thing for him to do." Life was not easy for Kathleen during the weeks which followed her return to the Beeches. She felt it her duty to rectify these errors by a course of firm and judicious management. Page 127. "How often must I beg you to speak the simple truth?" "I have no wish to hear what he said," interrupted her aunt coldly. "The girl is simply idle and self-indulgent. Have you ever found her out to be untruthful?" "I prefer obedience to professions of gratitude, Kathleen," remarked her aunt coldly. Page 133, black and white plate. Again she fell. Sight, hearing, and pain faded away, and she knew no more. She walked bravely on, and would not listen to the despair at her heart. He was quite incapable of giving orders, seeming indeed as though his faculties were paralyzed, ignore all, by the blow which had fallen upon him. "You think there is still danger?" asked Constance, turning paler. Page 143. More than one doctor was summoned to assist our friend Dr. Temple in his battle with death. What strange voice was this ringing in her ears? "You must die. You must die." Suggestion. "And you." Ignore once. How many a deathbed is haunted by this terrible array of lost opportunities, this calm weighing of life and death in the balance tried his nerves. "I hope I can say, 'Thy will be done,' yet I am anxious to live if I may." Page 148. When Mrs. Seymour opened her eyes and saw Kathleen by her side, she wished that she had not sent for her. Mrs. Seymour looked at Kathleen with a momentary return of her old suspicion. She knew that death was near. Knows. Ignore once. Even as the crimson glow of the dying day filled the silent room with glory, the angel of death stood by her side. Chapter 14, page 152. 5 years have passed over our friends in Beechwood Dale. Ignore all. "I think," replied the doctor, "that you had better stay." Page 165. He quite forgets that he has done his best to keep them asunder. Price is far above rubies. I can't afford to quarrel with you. The end. Treasured memories of our dear one, Gertrude Barrett. Died June the 13th, 1965, aged 61. For all of us, Mum did her best. May God grant her eternal rest.